We are very happy to welcome you all to another webinar in our series. We are running this series to keep us connected with Polish researchers around the world despite the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are using this opportunity to welcome, as I mentioned, speakers from all parts of the world. Today we have a speaker from Geneva. And before we begin, I would like to quickly remind you that all information about upcoming webinars are available on our Polonium Foundation website, where you can also sign up for our webinar newsletter. And as always, we are very happy to have NAWA, the Polish Agency for Academic Exchange, as our partners. And we would also like to encourage you to join Polonium Network, where you can connect with Polish scientists and find new exciting opportunities. Today we're joined by Katarzyna Wac, who's the leader of the Quality of Life Technologies research area at the Center for Informatics at the University of Geneva. Her research touches the fundamental and algorithmic problems of systems enabling an assessment and improvement of human behavior, health, and quality of life in the long term. She's affiliated with the University of Geneva, but also she's a full professor at the University of Geneva and is associated with the University of Copenhagen and Stanford University. There will be time for questions from the audience at the end of the talk. And to ask a question, please use the raise hand function that shows up when you click on the reactions or participant list. And we'll ask you to unmute your microphone and then you can ask your question. Or if you don't want to speak out loud, you can just type it in the chat box below and we will read it to the speaker. All right, are you ready to share your screen, please?
I need to unmute myself. Yes, yes, looking, share the sound, everything is fine here. Okay, we go on. So thank you for this invitation. I'm really happy to see that there is such a vibrant Polish community abroad, and I'm really proud of it. So today we are going to talk about health and quality of life and our smartphones. And I'm really happy to get back also to interesting questions and discussions afterwards. So let's start with example, small picture, as I would call it. So in the healthcare domain, we're talking about patients. And here we have a typical female patient, 69 years old, has for many years right now type 2 diabetes, had a heart attack recently, but even more recently, there was a hip fracture replacement, and loves cooking and too much carbs. And for those of you who know something about diabetes, you know that it's not particularly suitable diet. So this is her healthcare kit. She's having this little device to measure her glucose on a regular basis. And she doesn't have a diary, which the regular practitioner would require, which when you go for a checkup, because she says she can feel her body better. And this is her medication cabinet and the corner, actually, the kitchen corner. And there's a lot of medications. And as I said, she's a very stubborn person, knowing when to take medication, when to change her regime, or to stop something because she can feel her body better. And here we have an example of typical Polish cooking. So here we have gołąbki and sernik. And here it is. And I know this patient because it's my mother. And unfortunately, she's not the only one. Many of us, statistically spoken, are prone to a chronic illness later in life, as type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular or COPD, due to our daily behaviors. And what are these daily behaviors based on which we are leading ourselves into this lower health and quality of life? It's specifically tobacco, poor diet, physical inactivity, alcohol consumption, and a few more, which have less input. And changing behavior is really hard. And maybe some of you have seen this video, and I want to just demonstrate how changing behavior, even if we really know that we need to change our behavior, is super hard. So let's share this moment.
Today, start working on not touching your face, because one main way viruses spread is when you touch your own mouth, nose, or eyes.
So that encapsulates our view on behavior very well. It's a lady, policymaker, trying to convince everybody else not to touch their face, and she's doing it herself, right? And how do we capture this behavior? So if my mother or any other patient goes to the doctor, then we talk about self-reported outcomes. In general, this person will be asked about their particular aspects of diet, physical activity, sleep, or medication adherence. And there will be some infrequent visits. I also know that now, due to COVID, it's even less frequent, much more subjective, memory bias. You can imagine, like a recall of last months or weeks or days, right? Socially acceptable being, imagine that you are being asked to something which you not specifically want to talk to the doctor about, then you may answer whatever. And very qualitative. And additionally, we should say that, of course, we cannot change something which you cannot measure. So here is the statement: you cannot measure, cannot improve it. And what I'm going to show you today is the particular research developments, not just research, but also industry developments with respect to quantifying these behaviors. And we call it behavior marker, behaviome, as opposite to genome, as complementary to genome, not opposite. And then going much more into these digital biomarkers, where the biomarkers of the outcomes are captured via digital means. So the big picture is that this particular smartphone and technologies are almost embedded in our arms, almost. And from our own research, we do know that a smartphone is at least 88% of the time next to us, at least in the same room. And we can imagine that there's many apps. Why the smartphone? There are many apps. I want to give you some statistics. There's 300,000, more than 300,000 health apps nowadays on the app stores, and 200 are added daily. And this is like early estimate of some kind of consultancy group, which you have all the resources below to find out what happens next. And then I also wanted to emphasize that because of COVID, also that's a little snapshot of the increased use of our personal technologies for accessing these different resources and services. So managing prescription online, checking symptoms. Of course, who of us did not Google our symptoms, right? And then realize that we may be very sick. Manage medical appointments, seeing a doctor, more and more seeing a doctor, right? Or use mobile health app. So more and more of this is coming. It's emerging trend. I also would like to emphasize the wearables. So wearables like the ones on our wrists, or this is Oura ring, which is also measuring my steps and heart rate and everything what I do through the day, and many more. And these are this particular research and developments are enabled by advances in biomedicine, information technology, miniaturization, including the battery. Who of us would not like to have larger battery lifetime for our smartphones and other devices, right? Wirelessness, the connectivity, mobility, and all the support for the needs we may have on the move. So this is a snapshot of the wearables, but I also have something for you with respect to our own research. Myself, together with my students, we have evaluated 438 different wearables on different parts of the body. As you can see, there are wearables which are from the feet to the toe, from the head to the toe, I'm sorry. And then you can, fun fact is that there are, for example, 12 different wearables which you can put on your feet for measuring different aspects of activity, sleep, and other aspects. And I wonder if you can walk with this, but that's another question. Another fun fact is that when I have been contacted with by the surgery department recently, which is interested in assessing older man activity, specifically golfing, which is undertaken after the hip replacement, we do have a wearable for that, although I have not yet tested it. So you have all the resources below. So you have resources to our database of the wearables, and also annotated file with all these wearables. But yes, there's a lot of technologies on us, around us. And now I want to tell you, we're changing the picture, right? From what I said, the infrequent subjective memory bias, social acceptable and qualitative answers, we may have this digital biomarkers. Actually now, instead of patient-reported outcomes, we'll call them technology-reported outcomes. And the picture becomes much more richer from a perspective of evidence, what happened in between the visits. So much more frequent, continuous, non-judgmental, context-rich, objective, quantitative, longitudinal. So I think you got the point. And here I'm going to talk about this specific technologies. And the patient today, so this is a patient in the healthcare context being assessed and consulted with a set of experts. Definitely these experts are in front of the patient. They first need to assure that there is a right patient, right indication, right treatment, which could be a medicine, but it could be other treatment, right? Those route, time, response, evaluation, information, documentation. And then, as I said, we have this emerging exponential technologies around the patients and around the clinicians. And the patient tomorrow is going to be primary point of care. And the healthcare itself will become much more personalized, predictive, preventative, and participatory. And here I was at the beginning, I was saying, is our smartphone going to treat us? But actually, when you think about smartphone, is just the extension of some bigger brain or bigger technology. And it could have been also additional interface, could be like a robot, right? Joining the team, the healthcare team, for augmented reasoning. And again, today I'm going to talk to you about this different technologies available there. Because as the patient will become a primary point of care, it's going to be also thanks for these technologies, the patient will become expert in own health and much more equipped, enabled, engaged, and empowered. A lot of keywords, but I hope I will convince you that this is where we are going. That looks almost like this. I hope not yet, but I hope one day, almost like this, technologies will enable us to be healthier in the long term. But in order to talk about a smartphone is as this extension of this intelligence and leveraging these different data sets. I would like to start with what's happening from perspective of what's already available there in the healthcare systems being deployed. So I start with algorithm and AI. Artificial intelligence deployments, and I will start with US markets. FDA, it's a Food and Drug Administration, is a specific organization, government organization, which is taking care of approvals of these different technologies to be used in clinical settings. And here we have a very nice paper from last year, which is summarizing different types of algorithms and FDA approvals for this artificial intelligence-based devices, but also some of those are algorithms. And I would like to say that I was very, again, curious going into this aspects of what has been approved and what we're talking about. So 72 example approvals, 6 are for treatment. So, and again, when we talk about treatment, we're talking about some form of intervention. There's some feedback to the patients. And if it's not for treatment, it's just for assessment and for help with diagnosis. So really bringing additional information to the clinician, which ultimately needs to make a decision. While it's a treatment, then the algorithm makes a decision to give back some feedback to the user, to the patients. It depends on which cases. We may talk about individual if it's not yet a patient, but if we talk about clinical settings, we talk about patients. So the treatment is the intervention provided back to the patients, and I'm going to give you some examples. So, okay, so we have 72 example approvals for different AI-based solutions. And then most of them are so-called pre-market notification, and they have a moderate risk. So what we're talking about the risk, we're talking about the risk of treatment. So if the machine is wrong in giving feedback to the patients, and what would be estimated risk for the patient himself and health and deterioration. So going in the wrong direction rather than in healing direction. Then the 9 are de novo pathway, which is, I quote, reasonable assurance of safety and effectiveness. And fun fact is that ECG assessment of Apple Watch is under the de novo pathway, this AI algorithm. It's mentioned somewhere here in this paper. And then 2 are the pre-market approval, which is the very high risk, which is the high risk. As you can see, out of 72, there are 2 which are this high risk solutions, which may bring some significant health damage to the patients in case they made the wrong decision. And then when we look at the description of all this different algorithms approvals, then we look into there's mostly software. What appears in the descriptions, very specific descriptions by FDA, it's a software for some detection or assessment or monitoring or diagnosis. So as I told you, there's mostly support for the clinician with respect to better decision making. But I want to show you a few of the examples because talking like a high level doesn't bring much value. So here's one of the examples, which is called digital stethoscope. And it's really just an extension of the mobile phone, smartphone, which then brings, there's no AI, there's no specific algorithmic support. It just is very accurate in capturing the sounds of the lungs and the heart. And then the symptoms or behaviors the patient can, in the app, can self-report that there's some pain or there's some aspects of dizziness or depending on what's happening. So you can see, you may say, oh, that's really not a rocket science, as we may say, but actually that's what gets approved and needs an approval in order to be used in the patient's home, far from the clinician, and where the clinician can trust that this data represents the real data being collected from the patient. And otherwise, as you can imagine, the gold standard would be the patient would need to be next to the clinician, and clinician does it himself or herself and checks this sounds from different organs. So here we have remote stethoscope. The next one is urine analysis test. I want to promise you don't have to pee on your phone, but there is a specific pad, which and also a little cup to which you pee, and then there's a dipstick, and based on the colors, the smartphone gives you specific diagnosis. So the AI assessment, it's related. So it's not only that the dipstick is has this biochemistry part, which is analyzing the urine, but also that the specific AI aspect is in matching the colors of the dipstick with the gold standard or like the baseline colors, which are there provided, based on which then the feedback is given to the patient. And then symptoms, behaviors, there's nothing. I could not find anything with respect to self-reporting, something additionally with respect to what's happening. Okay, then we go into cardiology. Maybe some of you are in this domain and do know that there is a lot of, actually, first of all, cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer, one of the top killers of the for us, for developed countries. And there is a lot of research and development in respect to capturing accurate electrocardiogram and heart functioning outside of the clinical settings. And that's why also the efforts of Apple, for example. But nevertheless, many different research and development ideas go into developing yet another sticker. I would say yet another sticker, because actually I've seen, over the years, I've seen quite so many, and different shapes and colors, and also different positions. Usually it's on the chest somewhere. And then also this, the last one, it's the Alive Core, which is very interesting, where it puts, like, it's actually part of the, you can stick it on your phone, at the back of your phone, you can touch your phone, and there's another part which can put somewhere on the body, and then you have up to 6 leads ECG, which is really unprecedented, because in the past we've been having all these cables and really going in the lab and getting the cables and running on the treadmill or doing something specific with respect to performance and getting this detailed electrocardiogram. So here I wanted to say, what is the AI? I tried to discover from the reading of this approval. I was like, what's the AI part? So first of all, it's continuous ECG, and then AI part is analytics, like real-time analytics of this ECG signals towards understanding the arterial fibrillation. And additionally, there's accelerometer usually included inside this patches and other sensors, and it assesses physical activity, because when there's a high physical activity, then there could be a lot of noise in the ECG data. And the AI aspect will be really real-time analytics of this ECG towards the detecting the episodes. Symptoms self-reported. So there's, in all these apps, there's some way of self-reporting. There's fatigue or shortness of breath or other symptoms which relate to the cardiac events. Okay, so here we have multiple approvals. Next one is cardiac ultrasound imaging. So it's actually, this particular AI aspect is for the technician who is taking the cardiac ultrasound, and because of the real-time analytics of this, maybe there's a video here, yes. Because of the real-time analytics of this movement of recording and movement of the technician, then there's a provided feedback. So once again, it's you can see that there is rotate counterclockwise slowly. So there's a guidance for the technician to pick up as clear as possible picture. So there's real-time analytics of what's coming in as a picture and feedback to the clinician. And the AI aspect is this improving the cardiac sonographer skills and acquisition optimization and image analysis in real time. Okay, the next one, I think, much more exciting because it's wearable and it's real life. It's outside of the lab, outside of the hospital. It's a wearable for seizure monitoring. Maybe some of you heard about this company. It's a spin-off from MIT Media Lab and Patica, and it's a device called Embrace, and it's connected to a smartphone as all the wearables, and then it can have also caregiver apps. And generally, what's interesting about this, that based only on electrodermal activity, which if some of you work in this domain know that it's very noisy and very hard to interpret signal. The founders, the developers working for many years on this electrodermal activity, which is called also galvanic skin response, and it's basically the humidity level of the skin corresponding to the stress or other arousal, so-called arousal of the body. Then they have an assessment of not only physical activity, because you need to distinguish the sweat from physical activity versus the sweat when you are in rest, like for example sleeping, and then they are able to detect tonic-clonic seizures and alert the parents. So for example, for children, alert the parents, or for adults, other loved ones, right? So that's interesting. And then everything else is self-reported because the algorithm can learn better, maybe predict better this particular seizures. Then we get into gaming. So recent approval from FDA, it's gaming for children with ADHD. And this is the novo approval, and it's a game which has embedded different assessments. And let's go through this assessments AI aspect. So there's attention, movement, game inside the goals which you set, which the child sets in the game, are constantly analyzed and provided as the input into what's next and how to guide the child through the game, but also have this therapeutic outcome. And adapting this interaction pattern with respect to attention, impulsivity, working memory, and more. And then on the right side, there's application for the caregivers, for parents, to provide feedback on this particular child about how is the child, how was their last day, was there a particular behaviors which are being tracked or not, and additional self-reports. So how fascinating. We can be cured by playing a game. And then additional approval I would like to talk about is opioid use disorder, which is mostly based on the self-reported use of opioids, and also self-reported triggers, for example, the hunger, feeling lonely, social pressure, and others, cravings. And then the AI component is patterns. It just tries to see statistically the different patterns of triggers, cravings, and patterns of different behaviors. So I would say AI per se, it's none, because also it doesn't give any feedback to the person besides making clear patterns. So it really relies also on the accurate self-reporting, and then everything is self-reported. It's just a matter of analytics of the self-reports. And then managing type 1 diabetes, where the specific glucose level and insulin levels, which are self-reported. So that's also, I would kind of criticize it, because there are already devices for which can provide the data directly to the system. But it looks like in this particular solution, the self-reported values of insulin and glucose, and also carbs, right? So what you eat, and on physical activity, which is then also influencing the glucose levels. It's everything self-reported, and then the magic happens at the little computer or the back end, and it calculates the dose adjustment for the insulin. And actually, interestingly enough, it's much more better than if the person, it has proven to be better than if the person calculates it himself or herself. So it's much more accurately taking consideration the trends, and analysis is better, and the outcomes were better for diabetics. So self-reported glucose and insulin, and activity, and the carbs. So what you eat and how you move, and what is the different values for the sugar. So that was snapshot. I don't show you all the 72 approvals, because that would be long, but also that's not necessary. I give you some snapshots of more exciting ones. And now I would like to move into apps and wearables, apps on the smartphone. And actually, again, looking in where we can learn from, what's happening in the out there in the world. And we get into Germany. So closer to us, European Union, and looking into, want to see what the future of digital health looks like. We look at the Germany. Why we look at the Germany? Because in November 2019, Germany has established a so-called Digital Healthcare Act, and they have committed to have a registry of the different digital health solutions. And then actually the most important thing to start off was that the solutions which were approved for being prescribed were low risk. So you remember FDA told you that most of the approvals were also low risk, moderate risk maximum. And then here we have also this particular healthcare acts pointing out that if there's something which is low risk and it's already working, it's effective, efficient, and already proven to be a good intervention, let's get it on the registry and let's prescribe it. Let's have it available for the patients. And then evidence, actually, most of the solutions have being already in the registry do not have this evidence yet, evidence for their work, evidence for the fact that they really heal and they act as the intervention. And then they have 12 months from the moment when they are on the registry and they're being prescribed to provide much more statistical evidence of their safety, functionality, quality, data protection, and all the other aspects. And there must be some medical benefit, for example, therapeutic effect, somebody gets healed, or a procedural structural healthcare improvement. So the workflow in the healthcare system is improved. And again, I would like to give you a snapshot, getting into nicely organized website. You have all the links and all the resources below each slide if you need to know more. So here we have around 17th of February, a snapshot, 10 apps. 10 apps, that was that was back then. 7 provisionally approved and 3 permanently approved. Permanently approved would be that they have much more evidence already, and they are already, let's say, approved with a request to be improved, of course, because technology change and technology evolves and user needs may evolve, but generally the core is the same. While provisionally approved, that they are deployed there and they have 12 months to provide their evidence to be either fully approved or unfortunately not being discontinued. And then again, when we look at the descriptions, I pick up all the descriptions of all these apps and was thinking, what exactly are we talking about treating, right? So here we have the smartphone and devices treating us. So we're talking about mostly psychological disorder, like panic disorders, social phobia, anxiety, and other. And then when we think about the type of therapy, so nobody gets like electroshock or any other things which is intrusive to the body, but what we get is mostly cognitive behavior therapy. So being led by the smartphone app towards behavior change, or maybe some feedback for exercises. There is an aspect of diary or self-reporting, which is then analyzed. There's some AI component or maybe just basic statistic component, which provides us feedback of how did we do in the past. And I would like to give some exciting examples of these apps, not all 10. First one, Migraine. It's a provisional assessment. It's a really nice interface, I should say, and also a lot of different functionalities and self-reported migraine attacks. And then relates to the fact that the person will need to say what's the level of pain, what's the medication the person took. For a female, it's very important to also understand it was a period-based, related to a period, because some of the migraine attacks are related to a period or specific type in the cycle. Then was there a specific activity or relaxation or other aspect related to the attack? And then everything gets recorded and gets analyzed for the behavior patterns, which may lead to the migraine. So also by itself, this particular solution classifies the attacks and provides this feedback. And everything gets self-reported here, so there's no external device. And then also I was trying to find out, because for some application, as we'll see in a moment, there's so-called dose. So also like how long and how often you should use this application in order to get cured. But it looks like this one, it's for life, as needed. Whenever needed, you use it. Okay, so that was migraine. Now the next one is aftercare of stroke patients. And what do we have here? We have a very basic design. No criticism there. I mean, whatever works for the patients, right? And whatever was necessary was definitely co-created by the patients. But what I was happy to see here, because when you think about aftercare of stroke patients, and there may be some aspects of limited activity. So here we have a wearable. We have a wearable, and then this wearable feeds the AI component, which does behavior pattern assessment, including the rehabilitation. So there's some rehabilitation session will be prescribed, and based on the wearable, the service can assess if there has been a continuity of this behavior patterns with respect to rehabilitation. But there's no advanced AI, if I understood it correctly. And here we have self-reports and wearables, and we have 12 weeks for use. Then another one is obesity. It's a provisional assessment. A bit of similar to migraine. There's a lot of aspects of self-reporting and also more like a view on what are different activities, but also what happened. What I want to say related to migraine was that there was a very strong component of the calendar and noting what could be done and what has happened, what are the aspects of behavior. And I'm happy to say that here we have incorporated WeThinks, which is a company, French company providing this different wearables devices. And here we have a weight scale and pulse heart rate band, which is a wearable collecting data about physical activity, sleep, and heart rate. And what is the AI component? If you may say, it's understanding the behavior patterns of the individual, and then the individual self-reports the exercise and diet, additionally to the device captured data. So it's like more like labels it. For example, if you do yoga, then the device may capture some amount of steps, but it will not really know that it's yoga. It's too difficult to recognize automatically. So the self-reports, it's still important. And the diet is not captured by any device, even if you like it. So it needs to be self-reported. And then again, I could not find for how long it needs to be used in order to have an effect. So I presume it's for life or as needed. Next one is anxiety and panic disorder, social phobia application, which actually it was very hard to find out what's inside, but it's based on cognitive behavior therapy. And also part of this, it's make you insensible to the particular phobia you may have. So imagine you have a fear of spiders, then particular pictures will be shown to you with respect to spiders, and trying to desensitize your perception of the spiders along this lectures, this cognitive behavior therapy, going through this different aspects of affect, ABC, affect, behavior, cognition, right? So what you felt, what you did, and what happened. Yeah, the desensitization, it's so-called exposure therapy. You get exposed to this particular thing which makes you phobic, and different levels, and then hopefully with time you get much more desensitized and you are able to be exposed more. No really AI component here. And then here we found out that it's 8 weeks of use in order to get through this. So before I run out of time, I have a few other examples which are also exciting. And this goes back to crowdsourcing, because there was a US case of medically approved algorithm, and then we have the German case of apps being approved as medical devices almost. And then I want to also emphasize that the patients are not waiting, and maybe some of you know this statement, we are not waiting. That was a statement from diabetic patients, and here is another one, together we are powerful. And I want to give some really exciting examples of patients or individuals coming together in order to take care of themselves better. So first of all, maybe you do know it. It's folding at home, which has been very popular at some point, and everybody has a screenshot where what's happening, you can donate your computer power in order for it to run some specific algorithms and calculations and send it back to the big servers and the set of scientists who are looking into how to develop yet another solution, and not yet another, that sounds bad, but another solution which is necessary at particular time. So there was this crowdsourced synchronized computational resources, which are just using the distributed computers to find potential candidates, do the calculations. And there was a cancer and ALS and Parkinson, and recently also was COVID. So that was a snapshot from recently from the website, and there was some particular sprint defined, there's particular outcome, and they almost finished with this particular outcome. And again, you find all the references and resources down on the slides in order to maybe join them with your computer. Then the next one, and maybe some of you know it, it's called Patients Like Me. And actually it's an online website, and now it started with one brother of a patient, which set it up in 2004 for ALS patients, and now there's almost like 750,000 patients with 2,800 conditions. You may say it's a Facebook for patients, but I find this very negative statement, because it's not really being sick, it's not really fun. So this is the website, snapshot of some patients, and this particular website enables a lot of self-assessments. It also has a mobile component, one sends you daily reminders to self-assess, and also there's a lot of additional information you can provide about your medication and symptoms and side effects and treatments and when you see your doctor and what your doctor said. So there's a lot of nice analytics with respect to your treatment. There is no wearable connected to this platform as far as I know, but you can really provide everything. And this the AI component would be actually linking to other patients like you, patients like me, and then getting together maybe in some discussion or trying some N of 1 study or trying something else. And I'm really happy to see also that the platform developers and people behind it are also publishing very relevant research results. So like here is a kidney disease and suicidal ideation or other lupus. So whatever they found out in this large population of patients, which may not be representative because also the patients needs to be digitally literate to participate in this and know how to use it and be also expose themselves in a sense. But from the ones who are there, there's some already some learnings and some knowledge discovery, which will not happen in clinical trials, for example, because maybe it will be difficult to find this participants in this particular profile. Okay, and then I want to give you an example of a Parkinson patient. That's another thing. It's a 3D. I'm going into the direction of 3D printing and designing. So here is an example of Parkinson patients. There's a TikTok he posted, I think last year or earlier this year, and he says, "Pharma, hey, let's make the pill for Parkinson patients as small as possible." Because as you can see, it's very small, and Parkinson patients have this tremor. So the person, his name is Jimmy Shaw. He's 44 years old, and since age of 27, he has this young onset of Parkinson's disease. And he posted this idea of TikTok. He says, "Why don't we have a better way of getting our medications?" And the whole community mobilized, and then they together develop this particular smart Parkinson pill dispenser, right? So that's how fascinating, how fast it goes, right? So how available this technology is for the masses. And then a last example I would like to give is this extreme do-it-yourself treatment, where maybe you heard about this type 1 diabetes patients for Dana Levis since the age of 14. She's diabetic, and she was the first who has like hacked her continuous glucose sensor with her insulin pump. So continuous glucose sensor will sense the glucose and give a value to small reader, and then normally the patient should read it, make some decision about the food and physical activity and other aspects influencing their glucose, and then instrument the insulin pump to insert to pump into the body particular amount of insulin. And she was very very unhappy with the current system, right? Also because at night it could be really critical at night, where the continuous glucose sensor shows too low glucose, then the person gets waken up by the alarms and to kind of think quickly and act quickly and everything. So it's really can be a really dangerous situation, specifically for type 1 diabetes. And she has hacked with the system, and she has documented this hacking. And along this, she was also I need to say her husband is an engineer, so there was also some help from there. But it doesn't matter. The fact is that she was the first one to do it on herself and collected a lot of data proving that it's feasible and it's also safe, and she has not died, and she never went into coma or any dangerous situation from perspective of her glucose. So in 2015, she has started this open artificial pancreas system, and already had thousands of active users who were also hacking their devices. And they were all developing this platform for doing this. And then they pushed the FDA. I mean, they were informing the policymakers, like, we're doing it anyway, and also the industry, right? Like the what is the Medtronics providing also their experience and saying, okay, it's time for approving something and making something feasible, because it is feasible. So in 2016, the FDA approved the Medtronics artificial pancreas, and that was one of the more dangerous FDA approvals I told you about earlier. And in 2018, yeah, 2018, sorry, that was the FDA pre-market approval for the additional pancreas. 2016, they started. And then also the specific component, AI component, which is then also patented and also approved, it's Guardian Connect system, which is connecting the sensor with the insulin pump and predicting the glucose 16 minutes ahead and pumping or not as necessary. And so here we have FDA also looked into a so-called patient engagement advisory committee for these approvals, and that was all created because of one diabetic patient. And last notes, I would like to talk about what's about the patients, right? So we talk about all these technologies, but we also know that the patients, they just want their life back. They don't want to be sick. They don't want to think about the disease. And when we ask them what's their current experience of quality of life, it would be different aspects of family, relationship, and health, of course. But also I was asking something which was not usually in the quality of life assessment scales, which was something about which applications do you use that support your quality of life. And then we hear it about Facebooks and even games and news and Bible and banking and others. And then here, I would like to give a snapshots of different aspects. If you or any of you are thinking about developing yet another app or yet another solution, actually, human factors can be tremendously important, because not everybody can answer for the question, do you use your technologies like a smartphone for your health, with yes. So around 20% of the persons which we have interviewed, which is a just general population of patients, chronically ill patients, they would say, no, I don't mix my phone with my health. I really don't want, it's all in here. I don't want that my phone reminds me I'm sick, right? And then 20% are at the edge of deciding, but there is a privacy, it's complicated, their passwords, it's inaccurate. They know that's maybe inaccurate. And then when they do, then in this particular qualitative study, I learned a lot from the patients. I listened to a lot of stories. And to summarize it, all these different factors from the interface to accuracy to routines, I would like to say it's all about how this particular solution makes them feel about themselves. If they fail as a patient, if they fail as a patients taking care of their health, and if the device is yet another device which is judging them with respect to them not being good patients and not well taking care of themselves, it's going to go away. They are not going to use it. And also, I would like to emphasize social sharing. We do know that whoever of you also have the device, that one aspect of the basic configuration is, would you like to share your data with your friends and family and others who have this device or not? In order to show off a bit, right? And also maybe compete, and also there's this gamification aspect. And one patient told me very clearly, she said, I'm judged enough offline, meaning in the real life. So she didn't want to share it. And many of the patients did not want to share. So gamification is not the first thing to go with respect to design choices of such solutions. But getting back to big picture and summarizing the fact that I told you that aspects of genetics are important, but behaviors even more important, and behavior is something we can change. Then here is the snapshot of how we would see a comparison between the genetic testing, based on which, based on the genes, you could discover what are the factors what are the diseases and how you react to medication and how you are going to live your life. And now I would like to say that through research in our labs as well, we are also contributing to this vision of behavior testing, right? So what are the behaviors which are you inherit from others? What are the behaviors which you may give to your children? What are the behaviors which also contributed to your disease? What are the behaviors which will pay particular importance in your healing process, right? What will be the dose, and what are the patterns which you pass not only for children but your social networks? So that's the future we are looking. And in our lab we are looking into quantification of different behaviors contributing to quality of life, and we follow the quality of life definition with physical health, psychological health, social relationship, and environmental aspects by World Health Organization. And then World Health Organization defines 24 so-called facets, and we may say it's these variables contributing to quality of life. And in our lab, we're looking for underlying behaviors in contributing to these facets. And I'm happy to say today, out of 24 variables facets defined by both Health Organization, we have 13 which were worked out computationally, building these different computational models and looking to solutions for help self-management and behavior change, and squaring the curve of quality of life and hiring the better health for longer, right? So this integrative care. And I'm really happy that one day I would love to give a talk when I would say 24 out of 24, we have it worked out. So not yet, maybe some years. And getting back to the patients and saying that there's this computer, smartphone, or another device, which will be getting ready, and which will be this part of this care team, ideally outside of the clinical settings, outside of this room, hospital room, and are we getting ready? And getting back to my mother, one of the aspects was that I put on her a continuous glucose monitor, which is actually unavailable in Poland, and so I brought it from here. And what you see on the right side, you see her regular, okay, in red, you see her regular curve, which she would have in her head, based on which she will make her decisions. By means of pricking herself 3 times a day. And you can see that she would definitely miss some highs and maybe a bit of some lows, but generally highs, which are dangerous in long term for a diabetic. And the blue curve represents what the sensor gave. So we had a very interesting story. You can see the third day was, I only have 3 days, unfortunately, 2 actually. The second day, was the most interesting, because she said she could already kind of calculate better in her head, and also she really liked this little policeman telling her what's the status of her glucose. And another story is that she got a new medication. So here, what do we see here is snapshots of a Fitbit view of a few months in 2017, and then we have her ideal sleep time would be 7.5 hours. So here we see that between March and May, she was sleeping more or less okay, and then got new medication, and she got worse sleep because she needed to go to the bathroom, and then that interrupted the sleep, and it was very difficult to get back to sleep. And so for 2 months, then there was interrupted sleep, and the decision was very simple, because with this graph, she could show to her practitioner that actually, yes, there is worse sleep because of this particular medication. So back to the old medications. And this are just take-home messages. The technology will help us change the patients to be much more expert in their own health and all these different adjectives I was telling you about, as well as it changed the healthcare. So there's a 4P. And the challenges are numerous, and we do need a systemic approach, because I even did not mention here, there's aspects of course, privacy and security, for example, and data ownership and other aspects. And then the future focus, which will be much more about behavior and behavior markers. And with this, I would like to thank you, and I will welcome questions, and thank my team as well, which I represent here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this great talk. Do we have any questions? So we do have questions. Okay, Monica is raising her hand, so I'm asking to unmute. You don't need to worry.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Hi. Thanks a lot for the talk. It's I hope you can hear me through the mask. It's really interesting, and I'm actually doing kind of research in this field, so I'm really interested in these topics. But I would like to ask about the clinical acceptance of those solutions, and how do clinicians actually choose from all of these options? Because I guess the fact that it's clinically approved, it's one thing, but how do they know which one to choose? How do these technologies reach to them? Is that a challenge at the moment?
It's an excellent question. They don't know. They don't know. And actually, when you think about the workflow and which decisions are being made, is either we see success in case of clinician-driven research, in which the clinician has been involved from the beginning into developing some solution, and then it may be likely to be put to the level of proper evaluation and then deployment and maybe even scaling and licensing and others. I mean, depends what is this, hardware, software, or something. Or if it's really picking up from the from the market, imagine, right? Then it's more about okay, so what has been approved and what's my liability and how can it help me? But like first, like how do I even have a safe box? That safe box, like a sandbox or sandbox in respect to trying, right? How can I try it with my patients without thinking that I can be damaging for my patients or somehow deteriorating their health? So what I understood from the German system, where the apps are prescribed, right? There is this very strict evaluation with respect to evidence, and also do know, right? As I said, these apps are not, how do I say, of high risk, right? And then so it's like I will prescribe this app, but what I understood from the literature, and I was reading about this German case actually, it's kind of there's a lot of collection of real world evidence, we call it real world evidence. So also the clinicians will provide additional information about when it works and it doesn't. So there's a different levels of approvals. Then the policy makers make it available for prescribing, but there's still a hesitance from the clinicians, unless they were really developing this and they were in the process. So it's really also about involving clinicians much more in this development, and also teaching them this digital health skills and making them aware of these opportunities, right? So our work, if you're in this domain, our work is very important, also bridging the gap. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's
Do you have any more questions? Raise your hand, you can type them in the chat box. Tomek.
Okay. Hi again. Thanks for the great talk. I was just wondering about another psychological aspect, maybe, because I can imagine that everyone is in a bit hypochondriac to some extent, and I can imagine that if my father had access to at least few of those wearables or apps, he would spend like every day at least few hours measuring constantly his heart rate, many other health parameters, let's call them. And I'm also quite sure that I will have every evening, I will have a phone call, maybe not every, but every second day or so, I will have a phone call because there is a dip in one of his parameters, and he is wondering if he has to go to some kind of special clinician to discuss this. And I wonder if this aspect is also analyzed and discussed.
So that's an excellent question. Thank you very much. So in the recent research approaches with respect to designing this solution, a personality type and this particular threats are being considered as one of the parameterization factors. So, right, imagine that we can change the way the device shows you the data, right? We can parameterize what kind of feedback do you get. So this is relatively new, I have to say, because actually, ideally, it's like a pill. Everybody gets the same, right? So we need to really get into this new attitude of collecting the evidence where whatever works for you. So and of one approach instead of randomized control trial where everybody gets either a placebo or the specific intervention, and then everybody's on the same conditions. And yeah, we're trying to understand if it works for everybody. Now we're talking about long tail, and we're talking about the fact that it's going to be personalized for me and it works for me, and it works for me because I have a baseline for myself, and now I see that this particular thing works, and it's parameterized along who am I and how do I perceive my health and what do I care about even, right? And getting into motivations and attitudes and really this thinking processes behind what I see. So there's much more efforts into this, but I believe that we still need more, right? And it's not only my belief, I can see from research that we still need more, because then where was that 2 years ago? There was a moment when everybody was sending me, I think it was 2 years ago, when there was a large study with patients, like really thousands of patients using Fitbits, and it was Lancet study. And I remember a few colleagues like sent me a kind of like, whatever, it doesn't work, because it was showing that it doesn't work for behavior change. The title was very, very negative, and it's like, it doesn't work, it's something. And then we had this discussion, right? It was supposed to be a PL, but no, it's not a PL. It needs to be much more personalized approach, and Fitbit is not going to sort out everything. So yeah, thank you for this question, but it must be much more parameterized. And on one hand, it's easier because now we can just fill up forms and questionnaires and parameterize this and that and checkbox. On the other hand, it makes it more difficult for evaluate, right? So that's also, and much more difficult to design, also to have all these design choices. So there's a moment when we all stop with the resources we have, and then there is some aspects are generic and some aspects are specific. Yes, but hypochondria, yes, I can imagine. Actually, we did had some participants in our study who refused wearing the wearable because they knew that they had some challenge with heart, and they did not want to see the resting heart rate or any heart rate. Just yeah. So yeah, thank you.
In this case, I have one question. So with all the wearables that are used today, because obviously many people wear Fitbits or Apple Watches, etc., etc. I assume that the data they collect cannot be used for research in other companies because of the privacy issues, right? Or is there anything
that is correct? Unless, so when we have a user study with any user study where we do not develop hardware, right? So we are buying Fitbits and with things, or actually Apple Watches now, it's too expensive and too low battery lifetime. Like, nobody likes it. It's too complicated for our populations. We tried Garmin's and Polar devices and others. We have a part of the protocol in which the participant gives us access to their own data sets. So normally it goes through the manufacturer server. It's collected by the manufacturer, and the participant has an app and behaves like nothing happens, and we get a copy of the data. And that's the constant part, which is interesting. Recently, for example, we decided to stop working. We never work with any of these companies. Sorry, we stopped. We say we have all the work pipelines and code developed for Fitbit, but we stopped because they got bought by Google. We needed to reconsent our participants because now it's not just go through California back to wherever we are, but also it's now Google. So what do they don't know about you now, right? With respect to you connecting all your data sets. So our participants reconsented for this. Our ethical approval needed to connect it to take into consideration, but also that what I wanted to say is that we're trying to focus much more on the European market. So we think it's a European company, but again, we're not selling anything. And then even if we would contact any of these companies, it's very hard to get access to the data, because but the companies, believe me, but the companies, they do have their own research teams, and they work on the data and they improve the algorithms. They do. And I think Fitbit was, it was not a scientific paper, if I remember right, or maybe about COVID and seeing, Oura Ring, right? So the device from Finland, they had some blog posts and some reports, and they made a lot of, fuss about this, because they had they did collect some data, and they did internal analytics where through wearables it could be seen the progress of COVID or the disease. So, but it was not a scientific paper, if I remember right. No. But there is a platform. If you want to donate your data sets, there's a platform which was one of the slides. It's called Open Humans. You can register there, and you can either anonymously, or you can connect to specific projects which are running, and you can say, I'm donating my data source. So the moment it's a bit like in our research, the moment when there's a new data every day, then the scientists are going to get new data from you through the Open Humans, which is US-based platform. Yeah.
That's good to know. Can we donate any data sets to you, to your project?
Yes, okay. Yes, please contact me for this. We'll figure out it ethically. We are now under a big improvement of our ethics, such we can analyze the data sets from all over Europe through different wearables and smartphones and self-reports and everything. So please contact me. I'm not saying it's directly, I would be able to accept it directly, but because we have a we're going through the very detailed ethical approval right now, because we like to have participants for 5 years, which is one of the longest periods. So far, we've been doing it up to 3 years. Now it's 5 years, and we want to have a much more detailed analytics. So please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much. And with this, I would like to thank you, Kasia, for coming and for giving this wonderful presentation, and for all the participants. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you can see any information about the upcoming webinars on our website, which is listed here. And also don't forget to join the Polonium network. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening or day wherever you are.
Thank you. Take good care.